So welcome to one of the last days of SuperNova South. I'm going to be talking for a little bit on it's time to quit your day job, or is it? So obviously I'm going to be speaking a little bit just from my own experiences here. I would not say this is applicable to everyone or anyone other than me, but hopefully there'll be some value in what's going on here. So a quick little agenda, kind of got 3 sections. The first is really going to focus on why you're leaving your job and whether it's a good idea, why you're pursuing entrepreneurialism and whether that's a good idea. The second is going to kind of focus on when the timing is right, develop some metrics for financial stability, long-term planning, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, we're going to talk about actually how you execute when you make that decision to move over. So this is me. I am your speaker today. I'm Everett Steele. I'm the CEO of Kanga and a very handsome 5-year-old, courtesy of Olin Mills, circa 1985, I guess. I am the CEO of Kanga, which looks great on eHarmony profiles, but not much else. It's a very small company, startup. We have 6 people based here in Atlanta. What we do is we develop enterprise software for local delivery. And I'll talk a bit more about this later, but when we started back in 2013, we were a Uber for delivery startup. So you log into the app, you request a driver, he shows up and moves anything you need from point A to point B. Launched that and realized pretty quickly there was a huge demand for an enterprise solution like this. So nowadays we are a software suite that sits on the bookshelf of consultants right alongside Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, etc., and helps things ranging from the pie shop in Buckhead to Delta Airlines get things delivered locally. All right, so our first section here is take this job and shove it. When I made this slide deck, I was thinking the audience would maybe this would go over a lot of heads because young people don't know a lot of stuff. But hopefully you guys are aware. Johnny Paycheck, should look this up. No idea. It's 78, 77, something like that. Wrote a song, "Take This Job and Shove It." He actually just passed away 3 or 4 years ago. Made famous by David Allan Coe, a horrible racist country singer. But basically, we're going to talk a little bit about why you're going to leave your current stable or not stable job and go into the insane world of entrepreneurialism, startups, so on and so forth. So a lot of people come to me and ask me, is it the right time in my life? Should I do this? And they have a lot of different reasons. One of the big reasons, and one of the worst in my opinion, is I hate my boss. I hate my job. I hate, pardon me 1 second. All right. So, I hate my job. I hate the people I work with, I hate my cubicle mate, or I hate my boss. And in my opinion, this is one of the absolute worst reasons to think about leaving your job. It's actually a good reason to leave your job, but it's a bad reason to start a company of your own or go to a startup. It's just bad motivation. I've had, in the course of my life, some really bad bosses and some really great ones. I had a guy, let's see about how this worked. Back in probably 2008, I was in the U.S. Army working for a guy who, I won't say his name in case he's out there listening. He was just not a good boss. Did not care much about the people who worked for him, did not care much about, really, in a lot of our opinions, what his job was supposed to be. And so made a decision at that point that I was going to leave that job solely because I loved the job, hated the guy, just couldn't imagine doing another deployment under his command. Left the job and just scrambled for something to do. So as a lifelong vegetarian, I made the decision to open a gourmet chicken salad sandwich restaurant. If you can guess that my heart was not necessarily fully committed to that, that would be a very strong guess. Did that, researched it, spent a lot of money, did not work out, unsurprisingly to everyone around me, because it was bad motivation. Leaving a job for a shitty boss, or bad boss, just not a good idea. It doesn't mean you shouldn't leave the job, just don't go in entrepreneurial pursuits because you don't like where you're currently sitting. So the second reason that I would talk about is, come on. I'm a wantrepreneur. So this is a term I actually just learned yesterday. I was searching for kind of a word to describe what I'm trying to talk about here, and I learned that my buddy Mark Cuban here, I guess, coined this term on Shark Tank. I will freely admit I've never watched this show, but it seems cool. I actually did watch some clips last night, and I just thought it was a good excuse to show me with a picture of Mark Cuban. I kind of hate the term. It kind of reminds me, so Steve Jobs has a quote, and I'm sure it'll be in the new movie, where he talks about basically a lot of the generation of people who are currently in startups and technology are not truly entrepreneurs because their goal is to get in, build a company, and either IPO, sell it to private equity, or just cash out. And according to Steve Jobs, rest in peace, that's not the right way to do it. You're not a true entrepreneur. You're just a hustler trying to make money. In my opinion, and I'm no Steve Jobs, why not, right? That seems like a pretty good reason to do something. But for this, I talk a little bit more about really being an entrepreneur and some of the challenges that you face. I think the hardest thing for me personally, especially if you're kind of on the marketing, consulting, I'm sure some of you guys have experienced this, it's so feast or famine financially. I mean, when I was back in the consulting world and doing some pretty well-paying gigs, it would be 6 months with no paycheck, then a paycheck that was, you know, an annual salary for a lot of people, and then I have to figure out how to budget that for the next 6 months. And I will freely admit that is not my strong suit, and it produced a lot of stress in my life and those around me. The other side of it is being an entrepreneur and running a startup is just really hard. It's exhausting, and if you're not working yourself to the bone, I don't think you're going to be very successful. It's a lot of stress, it's a lot of pressure, particularly as you start building a team and building a staff under you, and then you start thinking of one of my coworkers had a baby about 6 months ago now, and you know, every day when I'm feeling kind of tired and thinking, man, I may be able to sleep in and miss this first meeting, I think, well, what if I do that and now Max doesn't eat over Christmas because I've been lazy? And you know, it's like having a family of your own, and you bear a lot of responsibility in their lives, both personal and professional. My dad has a great quote, and he did not invent it, but he said it a long time. I come from a line of serial entrepreneurs, and my father likes to say, an entrepreneur is someone who is dumb enough to work 80 hours a week for themselves, to not work 40 a week for someone else. And that's always resonated with me. And you know, I think there's definitely the idea of a work-life balance, but it is a challenging lifestyle. So the third reason, and this is the one that I'm going to talk most about, if the first two apply to you, maybe this isn't the best speech for you. But the real reason that I think you should start a business of your own, go into your own efforts, is because you've got a great idea that you think is going to change the world. There's kind of two quotes around this I really like. I'm going to read them so I don't butcher them. The first is Howard Thurman, American clergyman, passed away in the 80s, I think. His quote is, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." And I think someone told me that quote when I was in like 7th grade, and I didn't understand it or appreciate it. Now, many years later, it really resonates with me. And the other one is actually from Eleanor Roosevelt, who I'm a huge fan of. And what she says is, do one thing every single day that scares you. And that's something that I think is really critical. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're going to make decisions that you just have no way of knowing the outcome of, the significance of, or really always having the right metrics to make informed decisions about it. That is terrifying and exhilarating and very important to, I think, creating a successful trajectory as an entrepreneur or a leader in a startup team. So this is the reason we're going to talk about. You know, the reason is I've got an idea that I think is going to change the world, and that can mean a lot of things. Socially, environmentally, politically, economically, personally economically. You know, a lot of people say, what is the phrase? Do a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I don't know who said that. They are stupid. I love my job more than anything I've ever done in my life, and I work my butt to the tail. Is that a phrase? I work hard every single day, and I've never had a day where I thought, no, I didn't work hard today. Today was awesome. I think every day is awesome, but it is hard work. But if you think you've got the passion, if you think you've got the idea, well, this is the Homer Simpson car that he invented. It's just terrible. That was probably not the idea. But if you've got it, and you've got the passion, you've got the commitment, and you've truly got the idea, then let's talk about how to make it work. So the next section, we're going to talk about sort of how soon is now. I don't know if any of y'all are Smith fans. I'm a huge Smith fan. I actually have a cat named Morrissey. And I mentioned earlier I was in the Army, and this is a total aside, unrelated, but it's kind of a funny story. I had a helmet, and I also am a vegetarian, as mentioned earlier. And so I wrote "Meat is Murder" on the side of my helmet in homage to my favorite album by the Smiths. And I'll let you guys guess if that went over well in the U.S. Army or not. The answer you probably know. It was interesting. I think I ended up paying for the helmet. Anyway, so if we've gone through the first couple reasons and we landed on the third, now we're going to figure out how to do it. You know, how soon is it? You know, how soon can you leave your job? Does it make sense to do it financially? What do you need to do to be in the right position? And then, really, when you get to that point, how are you going to do it? So, quick quote here from one of my favorite American figures, Mr. Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation. someone is asking him a question in one of the episodes, and they say, you know, I want to do this one thing, but I want to do the other also, and I don't know how to do both. And he says, looks at him very sternly and says, never half-ass two things, always whole-ass one thing. And that always kind of resonated with me. I really liked it. So I was given a presentation about, probably 6 weeks ago now, to a group of students down at Georgia State. Very young entrepreneurs, really clever kids, smart people, and had a similar question. I had a kid ask me, I'll give some more background. So the panel was me, two very young, like 21, 22-year-old guys who were starting a marketing company, and then a third guy who was in like some sort of entertainment startup, also kind of just post-college. And a question was posed to the panel. The guy asked, I have an idea for an entertainment marketing agency of some sort, and I'm in college full-time, I'm working very hard at this, but I've got to start this company right now. How do you do both? And we went down the line, and the first guy's like, oh, what you got to do is you got to like prioritize your time. You got to figure out like, you know, how to cut down on your free time, cut down on this, that, and the other, and you just make it work. And they cut down to the second guy, and he's like, oh, well, what you got to do is, you know, you save up your money when you can. You got to quit your part-time job. You got to focus on the marketing, but also focus on the school. And they came down to me, and I said, quit one or the other. Doesn't matter which. If you've got such a great burning idea for a marketing agency, go for it. If that can't wait 4 years, knock your socks off, do the business. But being that it's a marketing agency and, you know, not exactly developing like a crazy piece of hardware that the world doesn't have yet, there will be marketing 4 years from now. And 4 years from now, you'll have a degree, you'll have more experiences, you'll theoretically have some money saved up, or at least a huge pile of student loans that you can overcome at some point. But, you know, really, I think a very important part of making the decision to start a business is the timing of it. And that timing is there's kind of several parts to it. One is just the personal timing. If you're in school full-time and you want to start a business, do one or the other. Some people made it work doing both, very, very few. The other is sort of the timing in the marketplace. There are definitely some ideas that are a strike while it's hot, get it while you can type engagement. So for my business, you know, we kind of originally started as an Uber for delivery. When we started, we were the only one in Atlanta and one of about maybe 6 in the country. There are currently about a dozen in Atlanta and probably 6 more that have gone out. Oh gosh, more than that. There's probably 6 still running in Atlanta and a dozen that have gone out of business in the last 2 years. And nationally, we're tracking right now, well, globally, we're tracking about 9,500 competitors. So not exactly an empty marketplace. And if we had started 6 months later, we would not still be around. I mean, there's no two ways about it. So the timing of the market is critical. You know, if you're starting a marketing agency or a PR firm or something that's more service provided, you know, there's always going to be a need for that if you have the talent and the skills. But if you're launching a piece of hardware, if you're developing a novel piece of software, you got to strike while the iron's hot. And, you know, as someone who's had, you know, multiple businesses of varying degrees of success, sometimes you just realize that you're just a little bit behind the curve, and you have to say, gosh, this was a great idea, but man, Amazon beat me to it, or, you know, startup X, Y, and Z just kicked my butt on this, and you move on. So really, I think figuring out the timing, and it'll differ for every business, but, you know, I'm a big data-driven person, so figuring out some metrics of what really makes your path to success the easiest or the most likely to succeed, the timing is a big part. The third is the financial part. And this kind of works in with the timing a little bit, and, you know, kind of goes back to the other thing we were talking about as far as the feast and the famine, and how long can, you know, you personally run out. So there's a couple, I think, metrics you need to look at. One, if you quit your job tomorrow, 2 weeks from now when your last paycheck comes in, how long can you keep yourself in food, clothing, and shelter before you lose 1 or 2 or 3 of those things? You know, I typically recommend when I meet with people who are trying to start a business that they have at least 6 months. That's different for everyone. I'm not going to tell anyone how to manage their finances because I do a terrible job of my own. But, you know, I think if you don't have a 6-month buffer, you're in trouble. It takes a long time to set a business up. It takes a long, long time to become profitable. Just having some cash flow can be great because then you can start loaning yourself money from the business if you want to play that game. Not that I recommend that necessarily, but it's, you know, it's an option. Cash flow is always better than not. But, you know, it really comes down to how quickly can you start putting money back into your personal savings, into your business, and into, you know, feeding, clothing, and housing yourself. especially if you're looking at sort of the consulting or contracting world, whether it be professional services, even accounting, marketing, whatever you're looking to do, it can be a long time before you start making money. 6 months makes a lot of sense. You'll find, especially if you start landing some good contracts, one of the hardest things you can have happen, I had this at a previous business, we succeeded into failure. I mean, we had contracts from IHG, Delta, a big consumer packaged goods company, and for those companies, they're on net 60, net 90 terms, net 120 if you're a bad negotiator, and that's a long time to not get paid. And you're doing work, so that means you're not going out and getting new contracts, you're not getting new business in your pipeline if you're a small team, and you can succeed your way into failure, and I've seen it happen many times, and it's dangerous. It also requires a lot of personal discipline. Kind of going back to that idea of feast or famine. When you see a 5-figure check come in, and you think, well, I can not only pay my bills, but I'll take a weekend off. I'll go down to the beach, which I'm doing in about an hour here. Don't live by my example. But it does require discipline, it requires focus, and it requires management of your assets and your financial health. So the third part is the personal capital. So take the money out of it and look at really the impact on your life of starting a business. And I think one thing that a lot of people overlook, I actually was speaking to a guy yesterday about this, what they overlook, they say, hey, I've got enough money for 6 months, I've got a business plan that's going to change the world, I'm at the right place in my career to make this jump. And the first thing I always ask them, I was like, oh, you're wearing a wedding ring. What does your wife think? And they're like, oh, she's pretty sportive. Is she? Doesn't sound like she's super sportive. And it's the hardest thing. I mean, I have seen friends, family, this is a kind of a sad story, but I mean, between the 6 employees of my company, full-time, we have 3 divorces. Not a great track record. It's hard. It's hard on your family. It's hard on your children. For me, it's very hard on my pets. They're very lonely. As a single dad to 2 wonderful cats. It's taxing. And I'll tell you a personal story. I was not going to include this, but whatever. In the course of the probably 5 businesses I've started, I have been sued or threatened to be sued by, I don't know, a lot of people. And pretty cool people too. The Braves sued or threatened to sue me. NBC twice. People personally for a variety of claims. And it's stressful. So it was actually about this time last year, I had a pending, I had a defamation suit, just some crap to get people to, cough up some money. It was very stressful, and we were closing a round of funding. So I had this huge immense pressure from our board, this huge immense pressure from existing investors, novel investors to get due diligence done, this lawsuit hanging over me. It was one of the most stressful periods of my life. And all of a sudden, I got really, really sick, and I couldn't swallow, my mouth was just killing me, I could not figure out what the deal was. So finally, after just suffering through it for about a week, I went to the dentist, because it was just all my mouth, just terrible. And I lay back in the chair, and he looks at my mouth, and he goes, oh my gosh, he goes, I've never seen that in real life. I was like, oh, that cannot be good, right? Like, is there money in there? Like, what is, and he goes, you know what you have? And I was like, oh, I don't know. He goes, so you have a disease that people used to get in World War I from extreme stress called trench mouth. I was like, well, that doesn't sound pleasant at all. He's like, yeah, that's crazy. Like, are you under stress? I was like, yeah, a little bit. He goes, crazy. And the greatest irony of it is that I've been in an actual war and did not have this issue. So, people joke about business being like war, it's a lot of times more stressful. So long story short, I'm fine. I'm not contagious. I took an antibiotic and everything. But it was a super stressful period of my life, and it just goes to say, like, startups ruin lives. I mean, they really do. They bankrupt you. They stress out your family. They stress out your loved ones. They stress out your pets. It's hard, and it requires some, whether you're spiritual or religious or whatever you are, it requires some personal fortitude and the support of a network of people that are willing to say, I'll go down this road with you, whether that's loved ones or parents or children or lovely cats. So next I'm here to talk a little bit, you guys remember Montel Jordan? We've gone through the whole checklist. We've decided, it's the right time to do it. The idea is right. I've got the financial plan. I've got the emotional support. I've got everything I need to make this happen. So the next step becomes, well, how the hell do I do this? So, in the words of Montel Jordan, this is how we do it. So the first thing I would say, first and foremost, and I say this to people constantly, before you dive headfirst into a business, you should probably know how to do it, right? So if you've worked your entire life at the lumber mill and you're the best, never worked at a lumber mill, you're the best lumber mill employee there is running whatever your thing is, and you decide you're going to start a sports a saw, they probably have saws, right? You're going to start you've worked at a lumber mill, I can tell. You're going to start the world's best sports management company because you watched Moneyball and you thought it was awesome. Your likelihood of success is, I would say, very marginal, if it exists at all. So sort of the idea here is get some experience in the field that you want to have experience in, or that you want to create a company in. I get people pitching me ideas all the time, and I don't mean this to sound, yeah, I do. Really often they are very, very, very bad ideas. Or just existing ideas that someone has not done the research to realize they already exist. I had a person pitch me an idea recently, came to me, the idea was just like Wikipedia. I'm like, well, we have that, that's cool. And the guy was like, well, the pivot is not anyone can edit it. So it's like an encyclopedia. And they were telling me, they're like, no, here's the deal. The only people that can edit it are people that we've verified are CEOs of Fortune 100 companies. I was like, oh, okay, well, like, so many questions. How are you going to what are you going to pay them to do this? And their actual business plan was, oh, there'll be no need to pay them because CEOs of Fortune 100 companies are egomaniacs and they'll do it to stroke their own ego. I said, oh, that's a really bad idea. You are so wrong about this for so many reasons. And one of the big reasons was they had never worked in media. They had never worked in marketing. They never worked in product development. One of the guys was an accountant, and the other, I don't know what he did. Nothing related to what he wanted to do. So really, you have to have some experience. And I'm not saying if you want to start, Uber for dog sitting that you need to be an accomplished dog sitter or even a former Uber employee, but you need to have some idea of how product development works, how apps get developed, how you market consumer facing technology. If you can't do that, you're really going to have a tough time. I had a couple guys pitch a startup to me recently, and I think they're going after it, so I won't say too much. But basically, it was for a consumer packaged product that totally exists. And it wasn't, they had a novel pitch on it, wasn't a novel spin, it was literally a product in whole cloth that you can go on Amazon today, which I did in the meeting. I just went to Amazon, I was like, this has to exist. 50 entries. I was like, yeah, this is already a thing. Like, oh, we didn't realize that. It's like, you didn't realize that you can go to Amazon and look up, and like, this isn't a crazy product, right? This is not like, a chair that floats. No, this is like a light bulb that screws in. It was insane. So definitely get some experience within the field, learn how to do it, and there's some great resources, particularly here in Atlanta, to do that. So I would be remiss if I didn't plug a little bit for the ATDC at Georgia Tech. The Advanced Technology Development Center at Georgia Tech, atdc.org, is an unbelievable program. It is the country's oldest technology incubator. We have locations, I say we like I have anything to do with it. We have locations now in Atlanta, Athens, Savannah. We're expanding down to Columbus. It is an awesome program. You can sign up to be a member of the community for, I think, $30 a month, which gets you access to unlimited classes. So we're talking customer discovery, financial planning, forecasting, product development, it's really unbelievable for $30 a month. I mean, it's the best value you can get. But in general, the Atlanta community is super receptive. I mean, one of the reasons that my company is here is because Atlanta's a great city for this. The communities are welcoming. We have ATV up in Buckhead, the Atlanta Tech Village. We've got Michael Tavani and David Payne from Scout Mob have just launched Switch Yards downtown. We have Opportunity Hub. We have the ATDC. I mean, there is no shortage of resources in the community, cheap office spaces, and people who are willing to help. And I think that's the biggest, greatest resource is, I've mentioned several times, I'll talk to a lot of people about their ideas, but that's a two-way street. Every time someone comes to me and talks to me about an idea and wants some advice, I'm doing 3 times that many asking to someone senior to me in the community, whether that's the mentors and the entrepreneurs and residents at the ATDC, whether it's Michael and Dave down at Switch Yards. I mean, constantly getting feedback, constantly figuring out how to iterate on what we're doing. And that's why I love Atlanta. We could pick up and move to the West Coast tomorrow and might have an easier time raising more money out there, but this community is just so welcoming, so receptive, and there's so many resources to learn. So kind of the third step here, have a plan. And kind of like the the idea of the CEO-powered Wikipedia, if you do not have a plan, you are not going to succeed. Oh, the picture is totally unrelated, has nothing to do with this slide, other than I was Googling for images earlier this week to put in the slide deck, and I saw that, and I was like, that's a pretty awesome image. I don't know there's a lot of images of other presidents drinking a beer and yelling, so as a fan of both beer drinking and yelling, I figured it was important to put it in there. Anyway, so literally make a plan, right? One of the biggest shortfalls I see, and I'm not saying have a 30-page business plan to even start thinking about it. That's kind of an older way of thinking. I am a fan of the business plan, but you know, I don't need to see a 30 to 50-page business plan to understand if your idea is viable or not. One of the big problems, though, that I see a lot of people encounter is they confuse the idea of a plan and an outcome. And those are two different things. And so people will come and say, okay, what's your idea? Oh, we're going to use social media marketing and we're going to attract a huge customer base. I was like, yeah, but you're just telling me a start point and an end point. You're not telling me a plan. That's like saying, like, oh, I'm going to the beach this weekend. How are you getting there? I'm going to end up at the beach. Like, but that's not a plan to get there. That's an outcome of what should be a plan. And so I will freely admit I'm a planning nerd. When I was in the military, I was first a platoon leader for a long-range dismounted reconnaissance squadron, which was fun and weird. A lot of planning involved, though. And then I actually moved from that job to be the plans officer for 450-man reconnaissance squadron. So planning was beaten into me by a guy named Major Rob Bala, who his corrective training was basically winging a highlighter at you as hard as he could across the room if he thought you were doing a bad job, which is effective, and I wish I brought highlighters for Q&A today. But seriously, I mean, having a plan is critical. There's a great Bible verse, and I'm going to misquote the chapter and everything, but it's a people without a vision will perish. And that's totally true. I mean, if you don't have an idea of how to get where you're going, you're never going to end up there. Mike Tyson has a great quote about it, and not that he's a great person to quote probably ever, but I think his quote is, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. So that's sort of the secondary to this. So we have plan it, but also be adaptable. Having a plan is great, but it goes away as soon as adversity rises up. And so what you have to do is be able to adapt and overcome changing scenarios. You know, a great case example, and there's hundreds, but I think a great case example is Netflix. When Netflix started out, they had a great business plan, right? We're going to rent out DVDs through the mail, and we're going to make a fortune. And they did. They built distribution centers in like 20 states, multi-million dollars in funding raised, billions of dollars in revenue, and then two things happened. One, the internet got real fast, so that we don't need DVDs anymore. Two, DVDs went away. Three, mail? Are people still doing mail? I think we're still doing mail. I don't get a lot of mail. But they had a great idea, right? People want content delivered when they want it. So instead of saying, well, we screwed up, we got to go shut everything down, they liquidated distribution centers, they sold off most of their DVD assets, and they built what is one of the largest streaming data networks in the entire world. I wish I had the facts, but they stream an insane amount of data. And it's solely because they said, look, we're not, you know, we may have missed the ball on this, we may be down, we're certainly not out. Look at, you know, Amazon. If you recall, many years ago, Amazon sold books online. I assume they still sell books online. I buy them on Kindle, not in the physical form. But long story short, they pivoted. They said, look, yeah, selling books is great, but we can sell digital movies, we can sell salt shakers, we can sell cat toys. You guys see the cat theme is returning frequently here. Guy that lives alone with two cats. But it's that. It's be adaptable. It's, you know, when you're going down this road, you may know exactly where you think you're going, but you could be totally wrong. You know, when I launched our company, we were Uber for stuff. We were helping, you know, Susie in Buckhead get a couch from a furniture store back to her house. And that's a great service, and people enjoy it. But we realized early on, there is a global opportunity for a platform, software as a service play, you know, to become truly an enterprise-grade company. And I will tell you honestly, we have operations now in 4 North American cities, 4 cities in Africa, the continent, I know it's not a country. And we're in Manila and expanding in Southeast Asia. And I promise you, if you had access to our planning documents, there was no plan that ever wrote down, we need to be in Atlanta, then Nashville, then Manila, then Cape Town, then Athens, Georgia. That's our first 5. But we were adaptable, and where the opportunity arose, and when we made connections with people in countries that were interested in what we were doing, we flew there and we sold it to them. And having that adaptability and that flexibility, I think, is a key, especially in the modern economy, in the modern sort of fast-paced world of startups and technology. If you can't adapt, you can't flex, you're going to break, and that's going to be the end of your opportunities. So the final slide here, and this one's a bit long, super cheesy. It's really about not stopping. So when you're developing your company, you're going to have so many roadblocks. You're going to have financial hardships. One of the things, I've done several startups, is the first one I've had to raise a significant amount of money. I did not realize going into this that my job really is just fundraiser. I am basically a guy in a call center dialing for dollars all day long. It's the majority of what I do. It really is. We've raised $2.5 million over the last 2 years. We'll probably raise $10 million next year. It's just a constant passing the hat around, which the hat will come around later. I'd like to contribute. But it's you can't stop doing what you have to do. There will be lawsuits. There will be times when you literally are sitting there with your leadership team saying, guys, we may not make payroll this month. Any thoughts? Are any of you not super into payroll this month? Because we can sort of draw straws, or, I mean, really, really stressful things. And it goes back to what we discussed earlier where, when I feel like we may make payroll on the 15th, and not of this month, we're good this month. If you're listening at home, Team Kanga, when you feel these things, you start thinking, is this even worth it? I mean, we've all had a great success here. We've had a great track record. Let's pack it in. Let's just go get regular jobs. Let's work 40 hours a week. Let's get health benefits. Let's get vacations. Not vacations. Let's get vacations. Let's not stress about this. And that's a viable choice, but understand that it's a choice, and if you make it, that's it. You're going to lose what you've built so far. You're going to lose the effort you've put in, and you might lose some credibility. I think that really speaks to a great sort of next point, that quitting is not great. Failure's not that bad. If you look at any entrepreneur who's had great successes, from Steve Jobs to, I don't know, Thomas Edison, there's a lot of failures along the way, a lot of bumps in the road, a lot of things that they probably thought were going a certain way and didn't. And they said, well, I guess I could quit and go back to working for Henry Ford. That would not be for Steve Jobs. I think he's already passed. Or I can pick up myself by the bootstraps and try and kick ass at something new. So in the military, there's a process that is, I think, somewhat worthless, called an after-action review, or an AAR. So they get used a lot. They were supposed to be like, hey, after a firefight, let's talk about what went wrong. Usually it's like, oh, the guy's shooting at us. But now they use it for everything, right? Like, oh, let's take a trip to the bathroom. Well, let's talk about it afterwards. And what they do is everyone goes around and you talk sort of about what happened, and then you do an exercise that I think is one of the most worthless things I've ever encountered. Everyone goes around and they give what's called 3 sustains and 3 improves. So 3 things we did well and 3 things we need to improve. And it is absolutely worthless. The things we did well is always like motivation, oh, good, teamwork, hard perseverance. Like, okay, good. And then the bad things are always like, we didn't communicate, we didn't have enthusiasm. Like, it's just these amorphous, horrible things that no one could listen to and say, okay, let's take these back to our plan, let's adjust how we executed it, and let's fix it. So there's a thing I really like. It's called the spectrum of failure. So it talks about there's basically 3 kinds of failures that you can encounter: preventable failures, complexity-related failures, and intelligence failures. And I'm actually going to pull up the notes because there's a boatload of them here. So of the preventable failures, there's sort of a spectrum ranging from, on the low end, deviance, meaning your employee or yourself or someone related to your organization did something bad, right? They stole from you, they broke something they shouldn't have on purpose, etc. The next step you can have is inattention. So that's someone was maybe told to do something, and because they weren't paying attention, they ran the lumber mill, I don't know, through too many pieces of wood or whatever happens at lumber mills. The third, which is preferable, but still not good, is lack of ability. And so that's you as a leader saying to someone, hey, I need you to move this 500-pound block of metal from here to here. They're going to fail at that task because you've not given them a task they have the ability to complete. The next, in the complexity-related failures, you have process inadequacy. So that is when a process is in place that is just not sufficient for the job. So if I need you to move this 500-pound block of metal, and I say, okay, here's a piece of rope, tug it, that's not a process that's going to get that done. Once again, you're going to have failure in your organization. The next is task challenge, meaning that the task itself is just too difficult. You know, hey, I need you to run 26 miles today. Well, I'm going to fail at that, probably. The next is uncertainty and lack of clarity. I'll try and speed through these a little bit. Lack of clarity just means you've told someone to do something and you've been really unclear. Hey, I need you to move that somewhere. They'll move it somewhere. Probably won't be where you're intended. And then the next come into intelligence failures. And intelligence failures are what you want to strive for. When you have failures of intelligence, you gain intelligence from them. So failures of intelligence can be things like hypothesis testing. Like, hey, I think if we do X, Y will happen. And then you do X and Z happens. That is an unanticipated, unexpected failure. But it's great, right? Because now you know X causes Z. So now we know how to get to Y. Or at least we know one way of not getting to Y. And so when you start looking at failures from intelligence level, that's when you can start really taking information, modifying it to your existing business plan, to your existing worldview, your customer base, etc., and honing and crafting and revising and iterating on what you're doing. And I'm a strong, strong believer, don't stop believing, that iteration is the key to success. And that can mean iterate across multiple businesses. It can mean iterating in the daily process of, I make coffee at 9 a.m. and then I realized a week later that really if I make it at 8:45, by the time everyone gets in the office, it'll be drinkable temperature. It's just constant self-evaluation, improvement, analysis, and then adaptation, which is a word, unlike adaptation. That's really kind of it. I mean, that's what I've got. Love to entertain some questions if you have any. Talk about anything you'd like to chat about, experiences, failures, trench mouth, cats, you name it. Cool, thank you. I'm glad you could hear.
Earthness of it too, instead of the academic preachy stuff. Really good.
I'm not a very good actor.
So don't stop believing, but when do you say like when's enough? When is enough enough? You've got so many things in the kit in the pan, right?
Sure.
How do you know when you got too much going on? And you know, I think the entrepreneur folks just can't stop.
Sure.
So what's a good marker for you?
So the question is, for those of you couldn't hear, you know, when is enough enough? When do you stop believing? And I think there's a lot of ways to answer that. I think it's very personal. Kind of goes back to some of our metrics from earlier is, you know, at what point is your family going to walk out on you? At what point are you going to not eat tomorrow if you don't give it up and take another job? Those are some very concrete things that are easy to measure. But, you know, beyond that, there's some very intangibles that I think are very important. You know, what really is your quality of life? If you're working so miserably at something that is not succeeding and you don't know or believe strongly that there is a likelihood of it succeeding, maybe you're on the wrong thing. I did an interview with NPR a couple weeks ago and ended up sounding like an idiot, but it's a challenge I have. They asked a question and I said something, and I sound like a real jackass for it, but I said something on the line. They said, you know, why do people complain that there's no money for startups in Atlanta? And I said, well, typically the people that I hear complaining about that are people that can't get funding, and typically the people that can't get funding here are people that maybe don't have the right idea right now. Not that they're stupid people, not that they have bad ideas, just, you know, if you're the 11th Uber for stuff in Atlanta, you're probably going to struggle to get funding as well as, or as hard or as easily as the first 2 or the first 10. Not that that's a bad idea. I personally think it's a great idea. But sometimes it's not the right idea at the right time. And I think having the sort of personal introspection to make that call is important. And I will say definitely personally and around most people I know, no one does that. I mean, most entrepreneurs that I know quit because something external forces you to. It's hard to give up your baby, you know? You're not going to walk away from something if you've got a lot invested personally and financially, but most people I know run things into the ground and probably don't hit eject when they should. Take from that what you will. Anybody else? Cool. Well, that is perfect timing. I think we're right at the end of our time together. So thank you all so much. Again, I am Everett Steele. I'm the CEO and founder of Kanga, and it's been great having the opportunity to talk with you all.